What's up, Paul? Welcome back to Moneyline Media. It's been a while, but we have an awesome guest lined up tonight. It is Magic Michael Hamel, a Bellator lightweight fighter coming off a big win. Hey, what's up, Mike? How you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Good to see you, man. How you feeling?
Oh, not too bad, man. Just hanging out. How about you?
Good, good. How's the arm feeling after? I know you just had surgery. When are you gonna expect to be back?
Yeah, surgery went a lot better than I thought. I'd known that my rotator cuff had been torn, but not completely torn all the way through the last couple of years. And so we'd kind of been rehabbing it and working around it. And then this camp just got bad. hurt real good, and it turns out I had a torn bicep tendon. So you've got two tendons in your bicep, and I completely ripped one of them off the bone before my last fight, and so got that up. But I guess it's a 4 month recovery probably. So I'm probably looking at fighting around June, hopefully.
Okay.
Take 4 months off and then jump back into getting in shape, getting my timing back, all the important things.
So you went into that fight with Achilles Moto with a torn bicep?
Yeah.
Oh my God. The fact
Yeah,
that
so if you've watched all my other fights, I fight southpaw predominantly. I can
right.
switch, but I'm more comfortable out of the southpaw position. But during camp, if I'd throw my left arm too hard, it'd feel like it was popping out of place. Like I get like a dumb tingle down my arm.
Sure.
And so I fought him almost 90% orthodox just so I could use my left hand kind of as a pointer.
Wow. That's very impressive. But before we get on to your Bellator career, I kind of want to start from the beginning. You started wrestling at age 4?
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness. Age 4.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I got lucky. I got wrestling on both sides of my family. So my dad was a freaking stud. He still holds the pin record at the University of Wyoming. His brothers were all state champs. And then on my mom's side, both of her brothers were state champs. And one of my uncles also wrestled for the University of Wyoming and also ASU. He made a junior Olympic team, or a junior world team. So I got super lucky with that. My dad was a high school and kids club coach when I was growing up. So I was in a room since I could walk. And so pretty much once I could pay attention to a practice and not be a little shithead, he let.
Wow. Okay. So you're a two-time Arizona State 5A champion. What's that like? What's that like? Obviously you come from a long line of wrestlers. I know your dad's in the Wyoming Hall of Fame as well for wrestling.
Yep.
But you won it at two different weight classes too. So was
Yeah.
that just also, I know there's a big difference between junior and senior year, especially for men, growing, just body frame. So you obviously
Mhm.
moved up your senior year. What was that like?
It was awesome. But you know what? Being a two-time state champ, it was cool. But I had pretty high expectations for myself. I should have won it 4 times. I was the number one seed all 4. So for me to only get 2, it's a little bit disappointing. But so by the time I finished my junior year, I really only weighed about 130 that year. But I cut so much weight my sophomore year. I wrestled 112. And I hit a growth spurt in the middle of the season. I went up from 5'5" to 5'7", and it just murdered me throughout the year. So trying to make that weight was rough. So I just told my coach, I grew a lot of confidence in myself that summer. I was like, listen, I'm going to win state, whatever weight I want to go. And I was like, I weigh 130 right now. That's what I'm wrestling. And then the next year, our team got a little bit better, and we had a good 125 pounder. We had a good 130 pounder, and we had a good 135 pounder. And I could beat all those guys, but as far as our team wise, it just made sense for me to go 140. So I actually only weighed one. I remember on the last day I had weigh in at finals, and I weighed in at 133, but I was too light, and the ref was like, get off the scale. And so I had to hop out the scale, chug some water so I could weigh under the minimum to wrestle. So yeah, that was an awesome year. That was probably my favorite year wrestling.
I was going to say, you're probably one of the only wrestlers that had to eat a ton of food to get up to the weight that you want to go.
Oh yeah, I was smashing baconators like they were going out of style. It was awesome.
How much did your teammates hate you that year?
No, a lot. For one,
Oh,
I looked at I was like, but for two, I didn't care because I cut so much weight. So if we were on a bus ride, I was like, I'm eating. You guys can deal with it.
I just imagine smelling that Baconator as they're cutting weight has to be terrible.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They probably weren't the biggest fan of me that year, but no, it's all good.
So then you decide to go to the University of Wyoming. You're there for 2 years. What was your 2 years like there, or 3 years you were there?
Yeah, so I was there for like 2.5,
Okay.
and as far as like the school and the team, it was awesome. Like I'm actually going up in 2 weeks for like the alumni weekend because me and all my freshman class decided to all get tickets, so we're all gonna go have like a little reunion with each
Awesome.
other. Yeah, it was really sweet. Like those are some of the best friends I've ever had. Most of them were in my wedding as the groomsmen. I was super close with them, and I love the atmosphere there. So the University of Wyoming, it's the only 4-year school in the state of Wyoming, and then Wyoming's obviously so small they don't have any pro teams. So like when sporting events happen in Wyoming, the whole state comes.
Wow.
Like
I didn't
yeah,
know
so
that.
it's like the support's unreal. Me and my coach didn't have the best relationship, which is why I ended up leaving, but it is what it is. We're better now.
So obviously you were like a legacy at Wyoming. So I imagine it was tough for you to make that decision to then transfer to Grand Canyon University.
Well, I mean, my coach helped me out. He kicked me off.
Oh wow. I didn't know why. Why?
Well, I got in some trouble. I was there. I got in a couple fights, and then I was kind of on probation for fighting people on the weekends. And then party happened one night, and the wrestling team and the football team didn't really get along, and I was a big part of the football team getting their ass beat that night. And
Wow.
yeah,
So
so I got told to get the boot.
well then in Grand Canyon you obviously made your mark, so it ended up being a good decision. You were a two-time All-American there.
Uh, kind of. So I All American once at D2, and then they made a transition up to Division 1, but you're in a probationary period. So you go to this like kind of knockoff nationals. So I don't really count that. It's not like a big accomplishment for me, but yeah, I really found my rhythm at Grand Canyon, especially like transferring. I fell in love with wrestling again. I really hated wrestling for the guy that I was wrestling for at the time. And, I was immature. I wasn't like mentally tough as I am now at the
Right.
moment, so I let things get to my head. But when I went down to Grand Canyon, like Coach R.C. LaHaye and Larry Wilbanks, they really like changed my life as far as like falling in love with it again. And it was the best I wrestled.
Right. So obviously you went through adversity in your career at Wyoming. How do you feel like that affects your career now, especially, being older, you're not 19, 20 years old, you're 29 now.
Yeah,
How did that affect? Do you think that made you grow even more as a fighter?
absolutely. It was the hard. I tell people this all the time. Like MMA has nothing on college wrestling. Like college wrestling are the toughest guys I've ever met in my life. And it's like then at Wyoming, like wrestling's changed a lot even since I've been out of college. Like they're having more fun with it. They're not wrestling as long. Their practices aren't as grueling. Like they're learning that you can't beat your body down 7 days a week if you want to perform.
Right.
But I was at Wyoming, we were having like 3-hour practices like 6 days a week. Like it was miserable,
And I
and I had
I
seasons with
imagine
injuries.
and I imagine as you're cutting weight, like that stinks. Like because you're cutting weight for the tournament and then you're going 3 hours and then you can't like eat really what you want to eat.
Yeah, no, it sucks. But you were going to be doing that anyways, like you cut weight at every single school. But yeah, being at Wyoming, it just taught me to be tough. Like cowboy tough is their thing. And I think I represent that really well now.
Oh, definitely. And I think you can see that with your fights. You're always, no matter if you're winning or losing, you're always the most aggressive in your fights, which is awesome. But I also
Thank
notice for a wrestler, and I'm not saying that this is correct, but a lot of people have a wrestler in MMA means boring, and you are not that. I feel like you're very, like, you're a brawler.
you. Thank you. Well, that's what I do, right? Like I've got little T-Rex arms. It's hard for me to get with guys. I've got a good chin. I've got a good gas tank, and I'm not going to quit. You're not going to break me,
Right.
So I think that's what people want to see too. And at the end of the day, fighting is, we're in the entertainment business. And if I sit there and I'm winning these close fights, but I'm just laying on top of somebody, or I'm not throwing punches and I'm circling the whole time, like who's going to want to sign me? Who's going to want to bring me back?
That's true. That's true. So you start your MMA career at 2000 in 2015. What made you transition from wrestling to MMA?
Yeah, so I finished school and I went to school to be an elementary education teacher. And I finished my wrestling season and I was kind of on that like weird little path where it's like I'm not an athlete anymore. And I wouldn't say that I went into like a depression, but it was weird. Like I'd been an athlete, like a high level one my whole life. And I knew that I didn't want to go right into teaching and trying to chase the Olympic dream. I wasn't good enough, and like you want to talk about being poor, like MMA, you'll at least make a couple bucks. Like if you're not a good wrestler, you're gonna make nothing.
Right.
And so I was just like, and I was kind of done with wrestling at that point too. And so I'd been in a couple fights, like I told you, in college, and I'd done all right. And I was like, well, let's give this a try. And I got really lucky. I called my college coach and I didn't really know much about gyms. Like I knew who all the good fighters were, but didn't know the lab was 10 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so he's like, hey, I used to coach wrestling there. Sometimes they'd have me come out there, like when Benson was in camp and stuff. And he's like, tell John Crouch that I sent you and I'll give him a call too. So that was the first gym I ever walked into.
And it's one of the best gyms. And you mentioned a guy, Benson Henderson, who's obviously could be considered one of the greatest lightweights of all time. What is that like training with him, especially as a lightweight?
Dude, it's awesome. It's awesome and it's not. It's awesome in the fact that he's such a legend and he really sets the tone for the gym. Like he is the most mentally tough person that I've ever been around in my life. And you want to talk about somebody that doesn't know how to get tired? He doesn't. I've never seen anything like it. It'll be the end of a hard wrestling day, or he'll do 5 rounds in the cage and he'll be out jumping around. I've never seen him skip around in sparring. Like he never sits on the wall. Like he's such just a lead by example type of guy. He's not going to yell at your face, tell you to stop being a puss or something like that. But he'll make you feel that way if you're not doing it. So it's awesome. He's a big brother to me, and me and him have given each other a ton of rounds, and he's the reason I am the fighter I am today.
And is it true? I think I heard this on one of your interviews that I watched. He's kind of what he got you into Bellator, right? With that fight with Adam Boric.
Yeah, well, yeah. So he had heard that one of the guys was out. I think it was Campos, right? That was going to fight Boric.
I believe so.
And he is managed by the same guy I am, and so I think him and Crouch called my manager and were talking to him about it, and he'd obviously heard. But at that time, it was kind of a funny situation for me because I was helping Benson get ready, but I just decided that I couldn't make 145 anymore. Like me and my coach had sat down like 2 weeks before this, and I was like, hey, dude, I can't make 145 anymore. Like I got to go up. And then I get the call, and it's my first time making real money against what I think it was a great matchup for me, a striker against a wrestler. And so you can't say no to that. And then it's the only time ever out of my whole life that I've ever missed weight. I was stinking embarrassed, but I damn near died.
Right. But do you notice it? Because I noticed like your 145, your chin at 155 is incredible. Like you have I don't know what they call a metal chin at this point. and you went against your 2 losses in Bellator are against top 5 guys.
Yeah.
So that made a big difference in your chin, I imagine, going up to 155.
It was bad. Like when I was making 45, I couldn't spar the last 2 weeks. Like I was so chinny, like trying to get my weight down. I was gonna go out cold, and I got knocked out one time when it was stupid. I got hit, but it was like I had bad weight cut, and I obviously had no fluid in my brain. And then the other one, when I lost to Winsky, I was whooping his ass, and he hit me with a shot that I didn't think was that hard, and the cage went sideways. I don't even remember getting armbarred. Oh, this is Harley, by the way.
Oh, hi, Harley.
But yeah, at 55, that was one of the main things. And I trained my ass off. And at 45, like I'd still get tired in the 3rd rounds. I wasn't chinny. Like I just didn't like how I performed.
Yeah. You brought up also in one of your interviews, your cardio against Bryce Logan. And I thought your cardio looked good, but you said that you felt like your cardio was off and you had COVID. Do you still have that effects of COVID like in your
No,
last fight? No, no. Okay.
no, I felt great. I felt great last fight besides my arm. I couldn't get off the cage because I couldn't dig an underhook.
Right.
But no, that Bryce Logan fight, it was weird. Like I was gassed after the first. Like I came back to the center. Like I started getting tired of my warm up, and my coach David was like, "Hey, like let's chill out. Like you don't got to warm up so hard. You're good." So that was weird for me. I didn't like that. But whether it was COVID affected me or maybe I overtrained for that fight or whatever it was, I switched it and I felt good for my last fight. So
Yeah, you looked really good in your last fight, which was a really close fight. He praised you after the fight. I looked on Bellator's Instagram. He didn't agree with the decision, but Moto thought that you were a stand-up guy. What was it like fighting a guy like him?
it was tough. I didn't realize how strong he was going to be.
He was big. He was big. Like I watched the fight, and I'm like, oh, there's no way. And then you pull it out.
Dude, when I saw him at weigh-ins, I was like, oh, like, and he looked like shit all week. I ran into him in the hallway a couple times, like just sucked down. Like he looked like I was making 45.
Right.
Like I was like, oh, he's gonna have no chin. This is gonna be great. I don't know what he did in the couple hours between weigh-ins and our fight, but he walked into the cage and I was like, oh shit. I was like, you're a big boy. And I blow everybody off my feet with doubles. And I got in on a double and he like picked me up by his fingertips and moved me like a little kid.
Right, because he usually fights at 170. Like that was his first fight down to 155 too.
Like kind of gone back and forth.
He's gone back and forth. Yeah,
Yep.
you the size difference, but you were definitely the one who was more aggressive in the fight and definitely pushed the tempo of that fight.
Yeah, I'd like to go see like honestly the numbers because there's no way I didn't outstrike him by like 50 punches.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, if he wanted to say that he won the fight because he held me against a cage, I mean, I guess, but he wasn't doing anything, so I couldn't, it was a split decision.
Yeah, I thought you had it too. And so did Big John. Big John McCarthy thought that you had it too. So,
yeah.
But all right, so you're obviously on a 2-fight win streak right now. Your only 2 losses are coming to top 5 guys. Do you want a top 15 opponent the next time you come back? Or because of the injury, do you want to start maybe with someone a little bit out of the rankings? Like what do you want next?
I'd probably like to get one more fight before I start, guys. I'd like to get this injury, making sure it's feeling good. And then, like I said before, like the biggest thing, like I'm not going to forget how to fight, but it's just my time. And I want to make sure every single time I fight, I grow as a fighter. I improve at some aspect of myself, and so I want to go and I want to make a big leap and improve. And then I want to fight somebody and I want to get a stinking finish. I'm good. I know I'm good. And I know I hit hard and I wrestle well. And I've got great chokes that I only hit in the room for whatever reason. So I'd like to get a win where I can go get a finish. And then shit after that, give me whoever.
You have been showing off your cardio definitely in these last fights, but you're hoping for a finish in your next one, obviously.
Yeah, I want to get some highlight reel KO that ends me up on ESPN top 10 plays going da-na-na, da-na-na.
Yeah, like a Sergio Pettis one. That would be awesome.
Oh man, wild knockout that was. He was getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, and that was the card you were on, right? So it was were you watching in the back like, oh, there's no way, and then he just hits it?
Well, so I watched the first 3 rounds, and then I was hungry and I wanted to go start drinking beer. And so I was like, well, he's losing this fight. And so I left, and then I got a notification on my phone. It's like highlight reel KO, Sergio Pettis is on. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and Bellator doesn't get on ESPN a lot because of I feel like their affiliation with the UFC. So you knew it had to be a good one.
Yes, absolutely.
So we do this game with all of the athletes that come on our show. It's called Rapid Fire, but it's like weirdly named because you don't have to answer these super quick. They're just random questions. Some might have to do with fighting. Some are just random questions. So I'm going to start with, who is your Mount Rushmore of MMA fighters?
Mount Rushmore. Let's see here. You gotta throw Gracie on there, right? He won the first one. A lot of people know about fighting. You gotta throw GSP for like longevity, people that he beat up. I think you throw Liddell on there because he's like the first big pay-per-view star.
Right.
Oh, who's number 4?
It's tough. I am also, by the way, your next question is the Mount Rushmore of lightweights. So if you don't mention them in here, you're good for the next one.
Well, speaking of lightweights, and I'm not the biggest fan of his attitude outside the cage, but you want to talk about somebody that brought so much light to the sports, Conor McGregor. You could throw him on there without.
Same here. Not a fan of don't like his outside the ring, but I don't think there's any athlete who's done more for their sport than Conor McGregor.
Yeah. So you can't even argue with that. Yeah. So let's see here. I got Gracie, Liddell, GSP, and then McGregor.
I think that's a good list. All right. Now I'm going to switch it towards your weight class and Mount Rushmore for lightweights. Yeah.
So you got to go. I think the OG guy at that weight class that like really brought hype to it was BJ.
Yep.
He was so fun to watch for so many years, and 55 is where he was good, I think.
Yeah, he should have stayed at 55, I feel like.
I think you go BJ, then you go Benson, because I may be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure he has the most title fights between WEC and the UFC at 55.
I think he does as well, because that 55 division was like, I still feel like it's the wild, wild west where there's been so many changes, but he was one of the more consistent. He was dominant for so long.
Yeah. I think so. You go Penn, you go Henderson. And let's see here. You go Habib, even though, he's undefeated. He needs to be on there. I wish I would have liked to see him stick around a little bit more.
Right.
And then let's see here. Oh, shit. I don't know. Who was the first? Was Jens Pulver the first?
Jens Pulver was the first. I think he was the first. Yeah, Jens. Yeah. And then, he was the guy that, I think he made BJ Penn kind of the guy he is today because of that victory.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Absolutely. Throw him on there.
Yeah. So, all right. Next up, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Fly.
Oh,
yeah. Dude, that'd be so sick. Like everybody's like, I say it like, you imagine you just like put a backpack on and you can just go fly to LA for a real week or something. But it's like, I think it'd just be so much fun. You're like skydiving all the time, essentially, if you want to.
Right. That's so true. You could probably use it too in the cage, I imagine. Just flying.
Somebody and hit him with a fist.
Yeah. So
flying elbows.
Yeah, I mean, flying elbows, a nice a kick, a flying kick would be sick, like a drop kick.
Right. But no, I think that'd be sweet. I think out of all the powers, like being super strong would be cool, but it's like, what am I going to go do? Like just pick up semi trucks for people?
Also, I think you'd have to worry about the weight cut then, because I don't know how that affects your weight if you're super trained. By the way, I didn't ask you this. What's your walk-around weight? Like, what's that?
Oh, pretty consistent. 75.
Okay, that's not a terrible cut. Because I'm looking at.
No, I don't cut a lot of weight to make 55. I mean, I do it the right way, and I do it as soon as I get the fight scheduled. I don't wait to the last second. And I worked with Dr. Capo, who works with like Marvin Venatori, and helped Garbrandt get down. And I worked with him for a while, and I learned a lot of good things about it. You can eat a lot more carbs and fats than you think you can when you're actually trying to lose weight. So I diet well, and making 55 is not too bad.
Very good. Yeah, because I feel like Vettori is like such a big guy too for 185, and not even tall, just like his frame.
He's a brick. Like
yeah,
Adesanya's like a Lego man.
What is your dream fight?
Dream fight. Well, I'm like the biggest fan of him, and so I think it'd be cool as shit to fight Max Holloway.
One of my favorite fighters. Love Max.
Yeah. I love Max. I think he's great for the sport. He's a great human being. It seems like he's a really good dad. And you want to talk about somebody who doesn't get tired and doesn't have quit in him.
No finisher. Never been finished.
Yeah, like what you want? That's the best chin in MMA right there. Is Max Holloway.
Oh, 100%. Would you stay in boxing with him if you fought him though, or do you think you'd go for takedowns?
I'd probably be going for takedowns.
Yeah,
I don't want to get hit. I didn't want to look like Calvin Kattar out there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see his next fight because of the damage he took in that last one. I know he's given himself like a year to recover, but still,
Yeah.
that was scary.
Hopefully he's good, man. I really like Cater too, and that's not me like talking shit about him. He's a stud, and I think that just shows how good Holloway is.
I mean, he's stuck with it too. Like he didn't go down, Cater. Like he stayed completely. Shouldn't have, but
Yeah.
if you weren't, and I think you answered this earlier, but if you weren't an MMA fighter, what would you be doing?
Well, so I said that I went to school to be a teacher,
Right.
but honestly, I'm pretty into cooking, like
Okay.
barbecue, and I've got like 2 smokers outside. I actually just made like a ton of food today. I'm like trying to get better. I got a new smoker that uses like real charcoal and real wood, and so I'm trying to get better at like managing a fire and stuff like that. And then I actually just picked up this sponsor, one of the dudes who I met through the butcher shop that I'm super close with the guys. He runs his own like metal fabricating company, and then he's also a caterer on the weekends. So he builds these super crazy good industrial sized smokers, right? Like an offset, if you know what it is. So it's got the firebox, and then it goes into like the actual grates. It's got the big smokestack. So you use like, there's no electricity on it, nothing. You heat it up with logs of wood. And so I'm gonna get one of those pretty soon, and hopefully get pretty damn good at it. I could see myself opening up like a catering company or cooking for people. If not, I think I'd be a firefighter. You get to hang out with a bunch of people all the time and shoot the shit and save some people, not sitting at a desk job.
See, I could see you just like your personality really shines in your fights. And I know this, I know amateur wrestlers might not be a big fan of this, but I could see you as a pro wrestler too. You just your look alone, the glasses after the fight, and it's almost like you'd be a great heel, but you're not a heel. You know what I mean? You're not like a bad guy.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, shit. If I get big enough, dude, I'm not turning that down.
Okay, so last question for you. Your next fight, we talked about it a little bit. If you had your way and you could handpick your opponent, who would you want it to be?
That's tough because like I said, like I wouldn't mind getting somebody that say like, because my record's shit right now over like a couple split decisions and losses I shouldn't have, and I had one completely get taken away from me. I was beating the shit out of Bruno Souza, and he hit him once in the back of the head, and he didn't get up. You know, so give me just somebody at the same record as me,
right? Because even your
9-5 fighter in the world,
right, even your like record in Bellator is very deceiving. You're 2-2, but it's like one was a split decision, and you probably gave Usman and Nurmagomedov the best fight he's had since he's been a pro. Like it's nowhere. Yeah.
And I saw quit in his eyes. Like come to the end of the third period, he didn't want to be in there anymore. I could tell. He started dropping his head every time he was exhausted. Like because he's going to get to the belt quicker than me. So when he gets that belt, I'm getting that fight back. And he does not want to fight me for 5 rounds. I guarantee it.
No. So that's a fight. I was going to ask you also. You had a split decision. Obviously, your last opponent wants that back, but if you could fight any of those guys again, it's Nurmagomedov.
No, 10 out of 10 times.
I like it. I want to see that fight because you definitely gave him the toughest fight that he's had so far.
Yeah, and I think I will be like stylistically the toughest match for him. Like when you get to the top Bellator, besides Pitbull at 55, it's a lot of wrestlers, right? But it's not like wrestlers with like fantastic hands. Like Sidney Outlaw isn't going to chuck much at you. Like he sits in a good stance, but he wants to wrestle the whole time, you know? And I think he pieces apart Miles Jury. I think I'm just the worst matchup for him, and I want that back bad.
Awesome. So I hope after the rehab, I'm going to call it the rehab match, after you have your match, you know, after this, I definitely want to see that fight. I know Bellator fans want to see that fight. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't wait to have you back on. Best of luck with recovery too, man.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, man. You have a good night.
You too.
Later.
Mike Hamel, Magic Mike, great guy, awesome competitor. If you haven't seen his fights, check them out. They're great. And that's it for us tonight. We will be back with more. We have tons of interviews lined up. The draft is coming up for the NFL, and UFC is coming back. Bellator is coming back. We're excited for this new year. And Happy New Year from everyone here at Moneyline Media to you and your family.